Hi, Agnes. Thank you for creating time to be here. We don't take that for granted. Karibu sana.
Thank you for having me. Thank you so much. And just to say, like, you're a powerhouse. We've been talking about that, but yeah, you're a powerhouse. So it's amazing to be here with you, Gladys.
Thank you so much for that kind compliment, Agnes. I appreciate. So today I'm very excited, and like I mentioned, we'll talk about all things education. We'll talk all things scholarships, mostly open for our Kenyan audience, or maybe African students. So I'm very excited because of that. And also we'll get to know about your journey. So I think let's just begin. You were telling me you are currently in the US. Where are you in the US and what are you doing there?
Okay, great. So I'm in this state called West Virginia, and it's not like Virginia, because when you tell people in Kenya, they think it's Virginia. No, it's West Virginia. And most people know that song, Country Roads, Take Me Home. Like, yeah, take me home. That place home is this state, West Virginia. So that's where I'm at right now. And I'm doing a PhD in geography with a focus on international development. So yeah, that's where I am and what I'm doing right now.
Okay, great. So we will start. Like I mentioned, we quite a number of our audience members are students considering different opportunities, or they just want to hear inspirational stories of Kenyans trying to make it out there. So number one, how did you end up in that particular area, geography for international development?
So the particular area, international development, I got into, it's been a series of things. I think from my undergrad, I loved economics, and if I had stayed home, I was going to do economics in Nairobi University. I actually did one semester there. But when I got a scholarship to study abroad, it felt like the economics I was learning was very much based to the context around here, but people were not addressing problems like, poverty or trying to find education solutions. So for me, there was a mismatch. And I wanted to see how could you contextualize economics back home to where we come from, because umeona hizi vitu, there are problems around you and you're trying to see how do you solve them. So that's how I would say I found my way into international development. And then now it's more complicated because where we come from, Kenya, African countries, other countries, like people call them the global south, we receive quote unquote a lot of aid, and a lot of the aid, like you'd ask yourself, why do we have all this aid and then there's no progress that's happening? So all these were questions that I had, and in pursuing a PhD, I wanted to bring also my work experience. So I ended up working in the international development space for a while. And I wanted to use all those experiences, lived experience, work experience, and also academia to merge together and see how do I find solutions to how the challenge that you always have, how do countries develop. So I'm curious about that, to be honest.
All right. Now we started a little bit before we recorded this about why you decided to do a PhD. And we were just talking about, so like in my case, like I was telling you, especially in Kenya, when I share my story of how I decided to do a PhD, and students are like, why are you wasting your time? You could be making money in industry. I studied mechanical engineering, and I'm sure if I had gotten a good opportunity from immediately after I cleared campus, yes, I'm making a lot of money. But there is a reason why I chose to do a PhD, right? Like, for instance, like I was sharing, to rewrite a narrative. Like I was telling you, like I don't want any girl in my family, extended family and nuclear family, any girl in my village to ever say they've never seen a woman with a PhD or a woman who's done engineering, right? And for me, that is success enough. Like I'll die in peace knowing that I rewrote our story or a story of our village, or I changed a narrative at least, right? And it's super exciting. That aside, just going through the PhD, and we were chatting about it, and I know we'll talk about the challenges because we are still in the process, but like it forces you to be persistent, whether you like it. because things will fail, field work will not make sense, data will be overwhelming, sleepless nights, lonely, long journey, and it changes. It did change me, and I'm so happy because from that process of PhD, I was able to write a book almost easily, just because I was a PhD and I learned about sieving through literature and gleaning useful information and synthesizing into something that people can read and understand. And because of that, I've written 2 books, and maybe many coming along the line. I'm able to make big projects now, etc., etc. Now, and I try to share that story so that people just don't see, and especially in Kenya, I think we just see things as black and white, and we are like, will this give me more money? Full stop. And if it's not giving me more money, leave that, right? And that's why I like sharing these different perspectives, or why people decided to do A and not B, etc. In your case, Agnes, and you mentioned that you did work, actually. You had a very good job. You'll tell us about your job. But then you quit your job and took a very risky move, and you decided to do a PhD. Why?
Wow. And first, like, kudos to you, Gladys, though. I keep telling you, you're a powerhouse. So even in the things that you're doing now, I don't know how you're able to do it. And just saying that even in making that decision, stories like yours were very inspirational too. Like, you know, when you say that you do it to change a narrative, and I guess for me, stumbling onto that article like by Gladys Kashtanja talking about you, I mean, it was a feature, I think, a news feature, and your story was some of the things I would say like waypoints that were pointing me into this is a good direction you need to take. And so when you ask personally, like for me, why doing it, and I had a job. So when I was working, it's important to be like, in the space you're in, you interact with different kinds of people. And for me, we were relying a lot on researchers. So like, for example, before you do something, you rely on a researcher. You commission them to do their work. And this is someone who is trained really well to do good research, to answer questions like for a problem that you have. And for me, I wasn't satisfied with just being the person receiving the output. I actually wanted to ask really good questions, design good research, get really good information, you know, and also be a thought leader in my area. So, and I'd always wanted at some point to do a PhD. In fact, I tried applying to Cambridge, I got a rejection. I tried Oxford, also got a rejection. So every year when I was working, I would try and put up an application because I knew that this is something I wanted to do, to be really, really skilled, a skilled researcher in what I was doing. So when that time came, when I hit like a 7-year mark at my workplace, I was just like, I think this is the season, this is the time, like I really need to pause and do this, because if I don't do this now, and maybe like we were talking about, you could say it comes from a privilege point of view when you've made some money like at work, and then you're like, now I can quit and then go back to school maybe. And I hear someone who's saying like, me, I just want to make money. But over time you realize like money is not enough. Your skill and expertise needs to take you further, and it will take you have to play the long game. And for me, when I hit that mark, I was like, no, now let me go back and do this and pursue this if I'm serious. And I also got encouragement from actually the CEO in my organization. He told me like, you know, actually go ahead and do this. You won't regret it. You'll be good at what you do. So that's what I did. I took the risk. I jumped. Of course, sometimes you get shocked in terms of like, I left a well-paying job to be, because you know, being a PhD student is not like a luxurious life. But when you think about, if you play the long game, it all makes sense, you know, it really makes sense. And like you're also saying, so that Gladys, like in your field, there's no one who can disqualify you. You get a seat at the table. You've earned the stripes, you know, like you've done the work. So when you start and stand in front of people and you're saying something, you're an authority at what you do. So there's no way someone can also disqualify you. So for me, there's also like an earning stripes thing in doing this that I'm doing, and hopefully inspirational to women, to Kenyans, to Africans, that we also know our stuff, Yeah, I guess that's it for me.
Oh no,
Yeah.
and thank you for sharing. Makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
I want to follow-up question on your, so where are you now with the PhD? And I obviously wish you the best, because it's not an easy journey.
Oh.
What level are you?
So right now it's my first year, literally like first year of the program. And in America, which is different, I guess, from your experience, I remember in the UK, is you have to do coursework. So they make you do coursework, and I have 2 years of coursework, and then the third year is now intensive writing on the dissertation and collecting data and everything. So I've just finished literally my first year of my coursework. It's I think I told you that over text. Imposter syndrome is real. Like you really know. I think the most humbling thing is when you find out actually that you don't know, and in two ways. So that you don't know, like because you're faced with all these people who are very well learned, people are publishing and stuff like that, and then you realize that actually I don't know. And then there's all this vast knowledge that's out there, and sometimes you wonder like how you would ever get to that place, or even structure your arguments in a particular way so as to even get published or read. So there's that imposter syndrome, and you ask yourself, what am I doing again? Maybe I don't belong here, in the first year. But also the other bit that I'm finding, and it's interesting, maybe if you come from a space where you've worked before, and you've worked actually in the field or in the area where you're pursuing your PhD, there's also an element of like, I actually know what I'm saying here. And that comes from, I guess, your work and lived experience. Because for me, I'm also focusing on African countries, and I worked a bit in different African countries. So like, I'm not theorizing this. I'm not just reading it from I've seen it, I've experienced it. So sometimes when some people face arguments, I can push back and be like, actually, no, that's not how this is. So it's a duality in that you have imposter syndrome on one end, but also you feel like, no, actually, I think I know a bit of what I'm saying because I've lived it, I've worked it. And you have some sort of fortitude, because also at work, when you're getting a job, usually people say you could have credentials, but unaendanga tu and you start learning on the job. If people are very, like, most of work is you learn on the job. And so it's that sort of confidence I think working gave me also in doing this, even as I face imposter syndrome, to just look at people and I'm like, ato huyo anajaribu kama mimi. We are all winging it, we're really all trying to figure out how to do this thing. So yeah, that's my journey so far. And being homesick also, I miss there's no place like home. Nairobi, I mean, Kenya in its entirety is amazing. So there's also dealing with that, dealing with new people, trying to forge a path in a new country, like penye ujui mtu kabisa. So that's also like very interesting because it tells you a lot about yourself. But you've experienced that too, like I know two different countries, so you can actually tell me a bit more on that. So yeah.
No, sure. I think if I was to, and you captured it, I think I've never met a PhD student who has struggled with some imposter syndrome. It could be like lesser degree, some higher degree, and especially if you're a minority, it tends to be. But the entire journey itself is just like, it's filled with self-doubt, etc. But as you go along, like I was telling you, it will force you to be confident on what you've done, etc. Because you will have to defend it at the end. And whether you like it or not, you have to appear confident, not only in your abilities, but also in what you've done. And so slowly the imposter thing will, I don't know if it will abate really, but I feel like you just learn how to keep moving with it. Yes, so there is the imposter syndrome inside of you, but you stand up, you smile, you don't show, and you present. And you know what? Like, people will not even know. I think in my I feel like people are x-raying me and they can see my mind and they can see that I don't know what I'm presenting. But over time, I realized that you are the expert in what you're doing. And so as long as you show some confidence and you present what you've done, like legitimately, like you've been working on that thing. So present what you've done, present the logic behind what you've done and why you've chosen this and that. And most of the time people are applauding you. Like mostly like amazing work, but then because we know so much in the thing, we just feel like the gaps are glaring and we get scared and we feel poster. But anyway, you will be fine. You'll be fine.
Yeah, let's talk the second year after doing, because I have to do they call them comprehensive exams. I don't know, did you have to do them?
Yeah, so I think in the UK they called it, what stage do you do the comprehensive exam?
So it depends. You can choose it, but they make you do it on your second year. So like for me, the next spring semester, I should be doing the comprehensive exams. Yeah.
Is it more of to officially get into research mode?
Yeah, it's to officially graduate you from the status of a PhD student into a PhD candidate. So now they've approved that you can, after you kind of know, because you have to, I don't know, do an exam on all the literature, do a presentation, and then now like go now full speed on to now start working on your dissertation. Yeah, and then people don't pass the comps and some give up and stuff. So yeah.
So I think in my case, then that would be at Oxford. They called it transfer of status.
Okay. Wow.
Yes, and it came after 1 year. But then also mentioned it was really different in the UK because from day one I was a research student. I was on probationary PhD student for almost 1 year, and then you do the transfer of status, which I think now in your case will be that comprehensive exam. Then in my case, you needed to write a report on what you've done so far. And then you present that your research or what you're planning to research, because you've not really done research. You've been kind of sharpening your axe, quote unquote, and then you present that to the lab, and then you defend it. It's kind of a mini defense. So the professors will ask you, why do you want to consider A and not B? And then you have to be confident a little bit, like you're still not sure because you've not started on it, but like they want to see that confidence in what you are planning to do. And then when they see the confidence and kind of you're prepared, you don't know what, but you're kind of prepared for the journey, then they let you now go into the second year where you now do like really heavy research work, etc.
Wow. And wait, I have a question for you and it might help the audience. So I think you had a guest where you were talking about the differences, like with the US and the UK. Also, did you know what exactly you wanted to do for your PhD when you got in? Because the thing with the US is that you kind of get at least 2 years to narrow down on what that would look like. But in your case, it seems like you kind of really had to know what exactly you were doing from the beginning.
Now, let me tell you.
Tell me.
But my friends wanasema nakuanga na kierere. And what and asking me, how did you learn all these things of recording, like virtual recording, etc. Ni kimbele mbele. Hapo sikudanganyi. Kimbele mbele tu. Na somehow I think, I don't know, I feel like it stemmed from nyumbani, like ile tu, because I grew up with boys. And somehow, just growing up, like you had to assert. I think assertiveness was the highlight of my childhood. Because then, if you're not assertive, they will kind of take the day. So anyway, somehow that skill or that value has been super helpful in my life. And so when I got the chance, I'll put a video here, and I'm sure maybe you've watched it. How I explained how I actually got the contact of a professor, or rather, how it all started. Like started with a classmate telling me there is this scholarship called Rhodes Scholarship. You tried, and then I tried it. I got it. Then after I got the Rhodes Scholarship, I wanted to use the scholarship to study masters. But then the same friend was like, I know you like research, you're curious, and I'm sure you might want to do a PhD at some point. Why don't you just jump into PhD instead of doing masters? People have done it before. Not many people, but some people have done it before. You consider it. Kimbele mbele yangu nikasema, you know what? It sounds like a good deal. Let's go. Then the next stage was now looking for a professor. And then this professor was like, well, if you want to do a PhD direct from a bachelor's degree, and then he was asking me, what university again? Which one is your university again? Because, you know, I mean, if it's Harvard, you have to define where Harvard is, right? But like, it's Jomo Kenyatta University of Agriculture and Technology. And my professor was like, okay, tell me again, which university are you coming from? Let's do a Skype call. I don't think Zoom was a thing then. Let's do a Skype call so that I see if you're qualified to do a PhD. Then after the Skype call, he was like, wow, I actually think you have what it takes. You have strong foundational knowledge in mechanical engineering. Come to Oxford. Let's write a proposal. If you get admission on day one, you come to the lab. Here is the pin. Just look for this. Look for this lab. Come look for me, and then we'll sit down and refine and settle on a research project. So I do not know. I do not have a particular research project to answer your question. I just knew like a rough. Like the way you were saying about international development with particular focus, maybe Kenya and Africa, I kind of had that kind of rough idea. Like I wanted to research anything in thermofluids, so it's just like this particular area of engineering. But I did not have a particular project actually in mind. But then from day one, when we sat down, when I got the admission, and then I I looked for him. He gave me some options. He gave me like 3 live projects that were running in the lab, and then he asked me to choose one. So I chose one, and the journey began. The long roller coaster.
So in short, people should like kuwa na kimbelembele itakusaidia vizuri. Yeah.
Please.
Yeah.
Please, Kwanza, I'm sure Agnes, I'm sure you know this, right? Especially, I say this with passion because I grew up in a relatively conservative village where girls' roles were kind of defined and boys' roles were kind of defined. And I think it was natural for boys to be assertive, but not for a girl. So I like particularly to encourage women, especially, because I think people are a bit scared of women who put themselves out there and assertive. Generally, they think just people want us to sit pretty and kind and pole huko nyuma na unyamaze hadi uitwe.
Don't push.
But you know, you have to. Someone was saying if they are not calling you to the table, you call yourself there. Mbele inasaidia. I'm sure you've heard mbele. Don't you agree?
Oh yeah, like I think it's such a valuable skill. Na venye unaisema, maybe if someone like just taking it as seeing something and going for it, you know, and also in hearing your story, in not self-rejecting. Because unaona, you could self-reject and be like, okay, people say that many bachelors don't go straight into PhD. So yeah, maybe let me not do it. Let me just go through the conventional path, you know. Oh gosh, it requires me to write this professor. He's going to ask me many questions. Okay, let me not even try anyway because I hear he won't respond. He's asking me all these questions. Maybe I should give up, you know. And for me, the struggle has always been to tell myself not to self-reject. And even when I got, like how, maybe we'll get into the story later, but how I got my first scholarship, it was a series of, the first time I did SATs, did not do well at all, you know. And then I was like, I could give up now, but I saw other people who did it and got scholarships, and I was like, okay, no, I just need to get back again. Wacha nijaribu, you know. In school that I got in for my master's, I didn't get any funding, but I was like, I will ask everyone in this university. I'll write emails to whomever. I'll reach out to all these professors and tell them, listen, this is the only school I've ever wanted to come to. So do you have funding? And you know, like, what does it hurt? In a month or two, they responded and they were like, yeah, actually, we have funding. You can come and do your master's, you know. So if you give up always at the sight of trouble or at the sight of something, there's a resilience, lazima, you have to build it, you know, that keeps pushing. Even at work, someone will tell you, that's it. Hiyo kenye unasema. If you don't go to meetings, if you don't sit, if you don't invite yourself, if you don't say you can do something, hata kama ujui yote, you like, I only know 5%, let me try, you know. There's no one who'll ever like throw these things at you. Sometimes you really have to go and get them, and more so for women, and more so that we are African, because sometimes I feel like our culture is good, but we're also, it's like, it's very respectful, and you come to America and people are like, they speak loud, they just say things, they don't, they if they see something, they go for it. And for us, you sort of, there's a timidity we have, and you find that timidity does not really work well here. You have to shed it and be bold, be assertive, see something, go for it. That's how the system works here. So I'm with you 100%. It's a skill. Kimbelembele is a skill that we kind of need to make sure we have and we cultivate. Yeah.
Yes, you're Kimbelembele sana. So it's something that people should definitely try. Be Kimbelembele in a positive way, because I think
I think they're understanding. We're trying to find a good Swahili word. So if anyone has a better one, but we're talking about being assertive, seeing what you want, but, not self-rejecting.
Absolutely. Now, before we leave, I want us to move out of PhD, but before we do, are you studying under scholarship, and how did you get the scholarship for your PhD?
Yeah, so it's something that's called, and in the US, it's a graduate assistantship. So most programs, I know there are people who have like scholarships or fellowships, but for me, it's called a graduate assistantship. So what you get admitted into a program, and then you get funding that you can either be a research assistant, where you're just purely focused on doing your research, or you could be someone like a graduate assistant like me. You get funding. In the first case, you get funding purely wewe fanya research, and I think it's like what you had. So you get a stipend that's given to you, and to allow you to live, survive, whatever, pay bills, and all you do is just work towards the output of your research. Or you get something like a graduate assistantship, like what I have is for part of your hours, like 20 hours in a week, you work somewhere in the university, and you can. So for where my project is called the Center for Community Engagement, and you work with them to see how the university can engage the community and students around. So for 20 hours of my week, I'm an employee of the university, and I work with them, sort of like figure out projects we can do, apply for grants. And then the other time of my work, so they then will pay my tuition, make sure I'm not paying any tuition, and get a stipend to be able to now focus on my research and coursework. And then now there are people who get fellowships, and these fellowships come with maybe membership into an association, and they also just pay for your funding. So when you apply to a graduate program in the US, ideally, for me, this is my rule. I don't know about other people, and maybe we can chat about it. I don't think you should be getting into debt to go to graduate school. If you find you're really taking out loans, especially to do a PhD or something like that, then I would tell someone, just look a bit more until you get some funding, because I don't know if it's good to do that. It's not wise. So in our case, the programs will definitely give you one. If you get an offer, you get funding, and it could be one of those opportunities. So that's what I did. That's what I ended up getting in applying to work with this specific advisor, because he has a very good background, and also like what you said, when you're looking for a PhD and you're applying for a position and trying to find a fully funded position, you choose your advisor matters, like what you did. You reached out to someone. So then that advisor becomes someone who will help you even in trying to find funding, so that if you get in there, like, okay, I think you're a really good candidate, so let's find ways in which we can make sure we get full funding for you and you can focus on doing your research. Because the other approach I see people doing is if you just apply to any universities, you might get a position, but you won't get any funding that comes from it, And also, you didn't choose an advisor. Only apply to shule, because maybe in Harvard, see it Harvard ni mbaya, it's okay. But for a PhD, and like you'll say, Gladys, your advisor really makes you or breaks you. So you apply to choose also your advisor. This is someone you'll work with for a very long time, and it needs to be someone who's good in his field, in the field you're getting into, and something that will also work for you, and also for funding, that you'll be able to get a package that's fully funded. So I know I've gone round and round in answering your question, but I hope somehow I've answered it. Yeah, in terms of yeah.
And it's very interesting. You know, just when I knew about the graduate assistantship thingy.
Yeah, in the US, like you get assistantship. That's how, and it's in the state university. So ukipata umepata offer na hauna hiyo, like just you look first, you get admitted, and then now graduate assistantship is something sasa yenye una apply after. So for me, I got it after my admission.
Oh, and GA, I think they call it GA. It covers everything, your tuition, your stipend.
Yeah, you get what they call a tuition waiver. So hizo classes, they cover them, you don't pay, and then now they give stipend yenye sasa ya kusurvive, unaona, because we don't live on campus. You get your own place. So as in say hiyo ni ya kukusaidia na matumizi yako. Like that's how you survive every month. So they pay you every 2 weeks actually.
Interesting. So now students wakitaka to apply, they can number one apply for, you said, state schools.
State schools, you can get it in state schools.
You get an admission.
Yeah, you get an admission. So first apply to a program, reach out to an advisor. Kwanza, advisor that you gel with, like your approach, like whatever you did, I think someone should really try and do that. Reach out to an advisor, see if it's viable for you to do a PhD, then apply to the school, get in, and then if there's some schools that will tell you once you're in, you get full funding. But then there's some state schools, like for me in my case, you get in, then you also need a graduate assistantship to help you now, stipend and your tuition waiver. So you find that that's not something hard to do. You just apply for it also, and then you do, you're able to have a fully funded program.
Interesting, very interesting, and I love it. I really love it, because then the main work for you is to prepare materials for admission. Once you've gotten admission and you've reached out to an advisor and they like you, then you apply for GA. How competitive is it? Like, do you think as soon as you apply, there is a chance you can get it, or they are normally competitive?
I think they are normally competitive, and because also, first of all, getting into a PhD program, honestly, for an advisor to agree, like you see your story, for that advisor to agree to take you on as his student, that in itself is a feat. It's not something, it's just a walk in the park. So getting an admission is a big deal. And then now, secondly, like for different programs, so if you get an admission, the program will tell you, we have to decide. We give 5 fully funded students to come in. Like they give you everything. So then the approach, like for example for us here, the GA position, you can imagine there are many students who are also trying to apply it, and you're not only you. You're competing literally with everyone who's applied. So it is competitive, and sometimes it's based on your work experience, because they're looking at your resume, they're looking at what you're studying, and also looking at how long, because they don't want to fund you to be here for 10 years still doing your PhD, right? So there's a cutoff, and they also are banking on that you're a student who will finish within that time, So they're competitive in how people get them.
Excellent. 2 questions before we move away from that. Does this apply to PhD students peke yao, or even master students?
PhD and masters, especially if you're going to but I know for me, in doing my masters, not doing it here, I know it was hard for me to get a fully funded master's program in the US. It's not very easy in the US. I feel like in Europe and in other places it's easier, but in the US it's a bit challenging. But for state schools, I know if you get a state university, they would have things like that, like graduate assistantships. And once you apply to a master's program, it never hurts. If someone doesn't give you funding, just ask them. Ask the department and be like, do you have any graduate assistantships, graduate teaching assistantships, anything that can help you fund your tuition and give you a stipend for living? And then the school will probably tell you, oh yeah, actually we usually have 2 or 3, so this is where you need to apply. But you have to ask. They won't automatically tell you. So apply for PhD, whatever, and if you don't get funding at first, just ask them if they have any GA positions that you can apply for.
Excellent. So now the students, you do the job, because again, I think another thing is because there is a student who was asking all these scholarships, right? And then I told them, here are the links, you check them out. But I think sometimes we are lazy, and I think people just want to be handed like, hey, you come, your scholarship. I normally like saying, I was making a video the other day, and I was referring to that story of Simon in the Bible, where these guys were fishing the entire night, had the morning, and then that is when Jesus came na akawafanyia miracle. And I was like, I imagine there were other guys fishing there, but by night they were like, there is no fish, me, I'm going home. But these guys, they stayed until morning. But then I was telling students, the analogy that I give them is, kuna watu they don't wachana hata na kukaa until morning. Kuna watu hawana net, right? Like hawana CV, hawana hizo vitu, you know. And then you want to, and assuming even the miracles happen and the fish imejileta hadi kwako, kuna watu hawana sufuria, like na utakusaidia aje?
Utasaidia, right? Exactly. I'm with that is 100%, you know. You can't. And also for me, the people who've reached out in that way want you to literally to do everything for them, and it's not possible, you know. And even the other thing you've added, if you've always wanted to like study abroad or even do something like a job abroad, the first thing I always ask some people, so uko na passport? Ama ume apply? Because what if it comes tomorrow and you don't even have a passport, for example? So how will you even? So like, but 100% of it is actually the preparations, like and also the boldness to see opportunities and take advantage of them. But you'll find some people weed off, not because they're not opportunities, but maybe you expect someone atakuletea akwambie shika ndo, but that's not the reality. No.
Yes, good opportunities are limited, and so you have to do your part of the work, and then you have to persist. Haitakuja kwa urahisi. So yes, you have to do your part of the work. So I had 2 questions. I was asking for master students, and I think you've answered that. And number 2, I wanted to answer, especially for Kenyan students or African students who might be listening to this, how do they know which one is a state uni and which one is not? How do they identify state universities if they want to apply for this GA thing?
Yeah, so I think the thing always is to go to the school's website and see. Because it's not gonna be, some universities will be explicit and say state university of, I don't know, whatever state. But if it's not, you have to go to the website and see and just read about, you know, like that basic page. Unangalia tu when you're like, because for me, my approach is when I was applying, even for undergrad, looking for those scholarships, it's you read about the uni and it will tell you this is a state university, this is a private university, you know, like Harvard, Yale. You'll just see those are private institutions, and so their funding. And then you also look at the size. Utajua, you'll tell whether this school, if it's a very big school, then they'll tell you they have different pockets of funding, so you know funding will not be an issue for you. But if you find like maybe it's a state school, unajua maybe kunayo, but the funding is limited, you know. So let me ask if they have any positions, GA positions or fellowships or scholarships. So look at the website and look at the about section. The about section should tell you what kind of institution you're applying to, whether it's a state school, a private school, you know. You'll find out from that.
Okay, excellent. All right, so I think there is a lot we can talk about on this, but thank you for sharing. I think that is super helpful information, and especially prospective graduate students. So we appreciate sharing generously. I want us to talk about, you mentioned that you've worked, because I think people think that if you're a PhD student, you've just been in school. Okay, for me, I went from nursery school. I've just been in school until I finished my PhD. But like you did, I want to talk about the kind of work you were doing. And I think earlier on you shared why you wanted to take a pause and do a PhD. So take us through the kind of work you were doing. You mentioned like 7 years.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I was working my role before I left, I was a program manager for women in trade, and it was for an organization that's trying to see how trade can bring prosperity. And we were looking at trade in the region, in the region I mean like East Africa, and also the mandate grew a bit to Africa. So it was just like basically doing projects that would see like how do we facilitate trade, and like cross-border trade. So how does Kenya trade better with Rwanda, Kenya trade better with Uganda? So I got to use a lot of maybe the knowledge I gained as an economic student and trying to find contextualized solutions or projects that would work in our context. I mean, does that even make sense? But the point I'm trying to say is I was working for an institution that was just trying to see how does trade work better for East Africa, and on top of that trying to think of inclusivity, because some of the things like kutapata, the way we were talking, trade can be a vehicle. For me personally, my mom was a businesswoman. She was always trading. But there are some challenges, for example, that you find that are unique to women vis-a-vis men. And so also in the organization, in that role of mine, we were trying to see how do we make more women, especially at the borders of Kenya with other countries. There's a lot of trade that happens there, but also napata there are issues like harassment. There are spaces in which women are not able to participate because they're just excluded for being women, and yet most of those people who are trading there are women. So how do we make those spaces more accessible to them? And that's something that I'm still very passionate about to date. So that's what I was doing, like for a better, and it was an amazing thing because you got to travel to all these different countries and find that even though the contexts are different, we find that we almost have similar challenges, and there are very many opportunities to grow the economies. Africa it has massive potential, never ceases to. So we have a lot of potential, and that opened my eyes to that this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. I just need to be a bit better. That's what I kept saying. I just need to be a bit better, be a better researcher, frame problems better so that we can find actual better solutions to some of the challenges that we have. So that's what I was doing.
Very interesting. And I like your intentionality about bettering yourself. It's really commendable. Not settling, like always asking how can I improve myself? So it's amazing. Now tell me about, when did you do your master's? Before the work or after?
Oh, my master's was right after, like my bachelor's. So I got my bachelor's degree, then immediately after I did get a job. I was here in the US. I got a job, but for me I knew that I wanted to get to school. Like I still felt like the program didn't address the questions I wanted, so I wanted to go to a school where I do international development. And so when I immediately after I got a job as a backup plan, then because I got an admission that didn't have funding, and I was determined that I'm going to this school. So I was buying time before I start this job. I'm like, Lord, please help me get funding. So when I got my funding, I was like, the job, I can always work. Let me go. So immediately after I went, after I graduated, went and did my master's. And then after my master's is when now I started working.
All right. So 2 questions. What were you mastering in, and how was the funding for that one?
Okay, so I did my master's in development studies. And I did it in the UK. So the funding for that, when I applied, all I know is that my professor in undergrad told me, your interest, this is a school you need to go to. So it's called the School of Oriental and African Studies, University of London. So I applied to that school. I didn't get funding, so Me, I didn't have any other school that I had applied to. I'd applied to actually another University of Ohio because they had a good program, but my eye was set on SOAS. SOAS didn't give me funding, so I was like, I'm going to try, like, move heaven and earth to apply for whatever scholarships that are there. I applied for one, I didn't get in. I was like, I'm not giving up. So I just resorted to writing emails. Like, I wrote emails to all the professors who were convening that program. And I told them, listen, I got this admission. This is the only school I've ever seen myself getting into. And it would change my life if I got in. Gladys, if I told you, I think I sent almost like 25 emails to people that I've never met. And some of those professors actually responded to me. There's one who's a very famous scholar. She's called Dr. Naila Kabir. She's a feminist scholar. She replied to me and she's like, okay, let me look around if I see anything. Like Kramer, Dr. Kramer, they responded to me. They're like, okay, we're gonna look. Let's look around. And I kid you not, like after a month, I got an email telling me, we're pleased to tell you that we have funding and you have funding to attend SOAS. Please respond on whether you want. Miracles for me, that those are stories of miracles in my life. So there's a persistence sometimes. I know, like, this feeling, like if you're supposed to be doing something, no matter, like, people, there could be a bulldozer in front of you, but you're going to jump over that bulldozer, So for me, I knew that I knew this is where I was going to be, and I was going to try everything in my power to just ask. It never hurts. Nobody will kill you for asking. And I asked and I received. So that's how I got my funding for my master's program. So it's like a unique story.
Yeah, no, and thank you for sharing. Like I'm trying to force all these lessons, especially students who've been asking about scholarships and opportunities locally and abroad. And I think the main thread is that if you keep persisting, and obviously I think you need to know where to search, and that's why I'm making all these videos so that people find or hear different ways people have been going around funding and all these other opportunities. But then write 20 or 50 emails. You have to persist. So thank you for sharing. That is a big lesson.
And you have to learn how to also write them, right? Because you write them, not like, dear sir, I really, really want to come to this university. Please give me a scholarship. No, nobody's going to read that. No. But you see, you have to, there's a tact in how you write it, in selling yourself, but in also showing that this university is the only place and I would want to study here. There's a way you also present it. So there are skills that along the way you also have to learn, so that that person, that busy professor, will actually take time to read that email and see that they'll give you a response. But if you read this, tells you, I'm sure you've gotten those messages, Gladys. Someone just writes you hi, or even HAE, give me a, and you're like, wow, okay. You're like, do I respond? Do I not? So there's also like a way you have to write those emails. You can't just like write random things and expect people to respond, because these are busy. Yeah, exactly.
Yes, and okay, I want to laugh and I wanted to talk bad, but also I'm not going to talk bad about the students who write hi and hey and grammatically incorrect sentences, because let me tell you, Agnes, when I look back to the email I wrote to that professor, you're talking miracles. I think mine is a miracle, because the email is well written. Imagine it had grammatical errors, but for some reason he just looked at it. Even the university where I was, right? He could not even eat. I'm not sure but for some reason he emailed me back. So I wanted to talk bad about those students who write bad emails, but I will not. I will not, because I was there.
But I think now we shouldn't. Okay, maybe you could have one or two grammatical errors, but there's a way. Think here kidogo, say kuna chat GPT, kuna vitu mingi, so like you're at a point where you really mean, hata ukisema you're from Africa, like mtu atasema hapana. So we have too many resources to be, and you have people who can help you. You can be like, I'm writing this email, please help me proofread it help me to add a bit more. Unaona sai, the world is a bit different now, like I would say, like
I agree. And in fact, I made one of the videos, I'll put it here, one of the videos just exposing my ignorance on how I wrote my email. So if you are interested in how to write a professional email, I'm not saying that is the only way to write, but like looking back, even telling a little bit about yourself, like the professor would want to know, what are you studying, like what do you want to study, and what do you hope to get in the future, so that when they get time to read, they'll give you helpful feedback or reply. Otherwise, hi, and then assuming professor say me hi, assuming too, but I'm sure no professor will email saying hi, and then after me say my hi, will say how is the weather over there? Time. So ikwe kwa email, ikwe kwa LinkedIn, even on TikTok. I recently joined TikTok. Aki and students are just saying hey, like HAE, and I'm like, Aki, I'm saying a time ya kukwambia hi, and then you're like, how are you? I said I'm fine, and you? Your time hakuna. So kachini, sema hi. My name is so and so. I'm currently studying here, or I recently graduated here. I'm looking for this opportunity. I saw that you are doing this. Are you able to help me with A, B, C, D? I'm available this time. You can see more about me here on my LinkedIn or my TikTok or wherever, so that when I get time, I will definitely reply. Lakini hi to watch it. So anyway, I'll put up this video so that students who are serious and they want to learn how to write better emails, they can watch and maybe borrow one or two things there.
Exactly. And it's not to criticize, because also all of us come from a point of learning. We learn these things over time, but we're just saying that kama uko na hiyo opportunity. And you know, for you in your case, there are things like, for me, I say it's providence. I think that's where you needed to be, and there was enough maybe passion even in the email you wrote for that professor to look and see. But kuna zingine where if we don't take time kidogo to be a bit skilled at it, that's how you'll wonder, nobody reads, nobody responds, unaona. But if you can better it, and you see resources like this, you have a video on how to write a professional email, man, okay, someone should look at that. Use an AI tool if you feel like you're not writing well, just something to make sure ujichomei ukona all you can do to get it umefanya. So I'm with you. Please watch the video. Watch it. No, definitely, man. We learn every day. Yes. Now, I've been itching so much to talk about your undergrad. And which you mentioned which uni you did your master's? Yes. So my undergrad was at Hofstra University in New York. So it's one of the private universities in New York. Yeah.
Excellent. Now, I want you to talk, and because you mentioned about the scholarship that you got in undergrad, very competitive teachers. So, first of all, congratulations. You are doing amazing. You are obviously an inspirational individual. So, just so that Kenyan students, at least they can know, and I think that is particularly for undergraduate. It's an undergraduate scholarship.
Yes.
So, this is mostly for high school leavers and those guys high school, or parents with kids in high school, and I think it's only for girls.
Yes, only for girls. Yeah.
I've been itching so much to get there, so please take the time to tell us what is this scholarship that you got for undergrad, and then just tell us more about like selection procedure for the parents listening in, or for high schoolers who just graduated high school. And I know is it African? Is it only limited to Kenya?
It's African. I know we have Ghanaian students, Kenyan students, Ugandan students. So I think I would say that. Yeah.
Excellent. You take the microphone and tell us everything about the scholarship. And I want you to take yourself to that time when you are applying. Like what should they be watching out for, etc.
Yeah. So, and shout out, honestly, this for me was the thing that catapulted me in just like an amazing place in my life. So I'm really thankful for it. So I got the Zawadi Africa Educational Fund Scholarship. And this was like an organization that was started by Dr. Susan Boyer. And it was supposed to, you remember there was an airlift in Kenyan history. Tom Mboya had started this airlift program where there were bright students from Kenya that had gotten scholarships in America. And the goal was so that you would get really good training and then they would come back to help build the country, because Kenya had just gotten independence and they wanted to make sure they had really good skilled expertise. So Dr. Susan Mboya revived it and started doing it. But now the focus was mostly on women and finding these opportunities so that you would get a good education as a means of uplifting yourself as a woman, and also of course because there'd be ripple benefits like to families, and on top of that also for the country. So that was the vision behind it. And I got that scholarship, very competitive, because there's a process for you to get in. And you see all these things, if people say it's hard also to write those personal statements and things like that, for the Zawadi scholarship is the same way, like you have this application form that you get. If you go to their website, their contacts are there. We'll link it, Gladys, for them to look and see. And you write all these essays and things like that. The questions they're asking you, the form is long. Of course, it's also based on, they need to have a selection criteria, and some of it is also based on grades. And you could literally apply from anywhere in Kenya, if you're in Kenya, because if you're speaking to that audience. And anywhere, provided you meet the criteria that they have. I don't know what the minimum is right now, the minimum grade after KCSE. And once you get into now the program, that's the first step. Now Zawadi, what they do is, because we didn't know how people apply for schools abroad. So Zawadi was that place. They would come and tell you, this is how first you need to do SATs. And we had books for SAT prep. So you'd go to the office and you can, because those books were expensive, first of all, and you sit there and they teach you how to practice. You had some students, volunteering students. So there's some students who had gone and through the program, and they would come in the summer and they would help us. They're like, this is how you prep for the SATs. They help you write your personal statement. So you write a first version, then someone helps you correct it. And with the network of students, like you can have a mentor, and they pair you with a mentor. So someone who has gone abroad as well, and they help you look at that. They help you write your personal statement, and then now you get a selection of schools that you're going to make your application to. And they really try their best to look at you, your abilities, and also those schools, and see you should apply to this, and this. So they give you get a whole list of schools, because you're not guaranteed that you will get an admission. An admission is as good as the application you make yourself, right? And then the work that you put in. So what Zawadi has done is they've been able to negotiate with those universities and say you really like the application that Agnes and Gladys has made to the University of Pennsylvania. Once you accept them, you accept to give them a full scholarship so that they'll be able to go through the undergrad program. So that was it. So for me, there are other schools that I'd gotten into, but the other schools, I think there was one school I got into, but at that time they didn't have the full funding for me. But then I got into this other university, Hofstra, and for them they had agreed that it would be 100% funding once I got in. And so that's how I got my scholarship to do my undergrad. I'd actually started a semester at Nairobi University I found about it much later. Nairobi University, then I found out about the program and I was like, gosh, I think this is something I really need to do. So I went through that process. It was very rigorous. There are people who gave up, by the way, and were like, I can't do this. This is too much work. But if you stick through it and you do it well, you get something. And it was, Gladys, when I tell you, fully funded to the very meals that I ate. In fact, the school I was at one time gave us tickets to go back home, because they felt, we were homesick and stuff. So for an undergrad program, that was amazing. And I'm really thankful for Zawadi. So if there's any girl who's finished high school, they should definitely look into it and see if you meet the criteria and then apply. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
definitely. That's the thing. And how many scholars are selected every year?
I actually don't know, because I think that's usually dependent on maybe many things right now.
Yeah.
And perhaps maybe it would be good to speak to them. Like, actually,
Oh,
maybe that one episode you have, like with Zawadi. Because I think maybe it's dependent on many things. Also in terms of applications that come in. So it's really dependent on that. The openings, because also every time maybe the schools, and you've seen like universities are going through ups and downs, like
yeah.
challenges and that with funding. So maybe they make all those decisions and can be able to tell, this year we can take 20 scholars, this year we can take 50 scholars,
Yeah.
So I don't want to give a full comment on that. That could probably come directly from them. Yeah.
Okay. No
Yeah.
worries. And even from the website, we should
Yeah.
be able to get information. So
Point.
we will just put the website link in the description box, and the students can go fishing. So you guys, you go fishing. We've given you, or
Yeah, make the calls, go
yeah.
to the office, ask for that information, because they're there and they'll give it to you. Yeah.
Yes. Okay, so we will do that. But yeah, really well done. Really well done. For that incredible journey.
Yeah.
I know there is something that drives you. Like every time you want to give up, but you are like, not today. I'll still make one step.
Yeah.
What is that inspires you or motivates you to keep going, to even quit your job and do a PhD? Because you are comfortable, and I think you could just continue in it, and you would be successful. But then you're challenging yourself. Like, what is this thing that is driving you?
I'll say, allow me to have like maybe 3 things. One
Please.
is first of all, my faith is something that I feel it's not something that I pick up and then I drop off. It's a part and parcel of who I am, and it helps me, it challenges me. Even, for example, if I feel like there are things like we were talking about, you find that God has really given us privileges and blessings, that it's not that because maybe I'm a very good hard worker. That could be part of it, that you're able to tap into it. But sometimes it locates you, and I feel like we're stewards of this blessing. So those things, like for example, even now in this situation, like in this program where you feel like you're wrestling with imposter syndrome, you're far away from home, and the easy thing would be like, I think I should just give up. Then you remember that someone else is really longing to have an opportunity like this, and for some reason God has seen it fit to give it to you. So you really have to give your best. You are a steward of that. And even when I was working, the same thing, like you have this really good opportunity, and you're seeing so many people who are trying to look for a job, and once you get it, you start not doing your best. You're okay with mediocrity. There are things that honestly it doesn't gel well, and you're not being a good steward of that. And then the second thing for me, honestly, is the drive that I've seen from my parents, my mom and my dad, and I'll also just extend it to my family, my brother-in-law, my sister, my brother, and how there's a way, man, those people are resilient. And even with very little, like pushing and pushing. So, like the way you were talking about, you have a village that you want to show them that you can do this. For me, sometimes some of the things I do is almost like because of that. How else could I not? Because you come from this family, you've seen them, even up to now, my parents are always still struggling to make sure they do the things they need to do. They're bettering themselves in their businesses. Me and my sister were the first, the way they say first generation college students. So my parents didn't have this opportunity, but wamejaribu to make sure, like when we were doing high school, we did our best. And so it would be a disservice for me to not even try a bit. And I think the third one is just that also for me, Gladys, I want to be better. And I think about the long game. You know, we were talking about that, playing the long game. You just don't want to be aimless, like in life. You know, it's always so important to have goals and to challenge yourself to do hard things. So for me, if I find I'm getting to a place where I'm feeling very complacent and comfortable, then I need to find a way to introduce something that will challenge me a bit, expand my mind, even if it's like my body, something different, something that will make you feel a bit uncomfortable and will stretch you to grow. Life would be very boring. Okay, cruise to, come on, a cruise to, maybe it's good for some people, but for me, it just doesn't work. So I constantly have to find some things or some challenges that would stretch me a bit to grow. So, I think those would be 3 things that I think about that keep me going or keep me, inspired.
Excellent. And you keep doing that. Because I'm sure you are also super inspirational. I was stalking your profile, like I was telling you. So you keep at it. Yes. Now, when you look back to your after high school, you mentioned that you went to Kenya High. Can we talk about Kenya High and what is one thing you learned from Kenya High?
Wow, Kenya High was first of all, let me tell you the story of how I got into Kenya High. When I finished school, I went to this school. It's in Isili. It's called St. Teresa's Girls Primary School. So people know, like if there's a Catholic church up or there's a school in Yenitangwa, St. Teresa's Girls. That's why I went to school. And I thank God for like the teachers that I found there. So for me, I knew that the school that I had that was the best you go to, ilikuwa Loreto
Okay.
Limuru. And I knew that that's the school I was going to write. I had my older sister got into Pangani, and one who went to Pangani, she went to Pangani, but she was like, no, don't go to Pangani, go to another school. She told me like, go to another school. So Tukioko, when at that point we used to get a form for us. I know right now online or whatever, you get a form and then you write the schools you want. So for me, the first school I wrote was Loreto, and then I put Kenya High. Kenya High was like the second one, I think, and then there was a third one, I don't remember. And then the other schools I put Pangani, whatever. So my teacher, I had a teacher, they would take the forms and look at them. So one of my teachers looked at mine and she was like, I don't think you Loreto. Loreto is very competitive and I feel like you'll miss the mark to go. So me, I cried. I told her, no, this is what I want. Then they told my mom, tunaona Agnes akieka Loreto, she'll really miss this. Now she'll end up going into another school. I don't even know it was Pangani. She'd go to another school. So my mom and the teachers agreed. This one they vetoed me. Let's just put Kenya High as the first choice, because we are trying to do this for her best. It's for her good. So we do CPE. I get my marks, and then it happened. Maybe I didn't get the marks to go to Loreto. So I remember feeling, and then the letter that I got was Kenya High. And that was not part of my plan. So I remember even you're trying to see, my dad is like, oh, maybe you have people who you can take you to those schools, but we didn't have any connections and I don't know anyone like that. So my dad is like, you're going to where you've been called. So that's how I got into Kenya High. Now, Kenya High was an amazing experience, but I was very homesick at Kenya High. But the people that I still have friends to date came from Kenya High. And it is also from Kenya High that Gladys, I learned that people study abroad. Because me, I didn't know that. I thought, you graduate and then you go to Nairobi University. That's where you go. My sister was going to Moi, so that's what you do. But then I'm in this school and there are people who are talking about me when I finish, I'm going to apply to schools abroad. I'm like, how? How do you pay for them? All those things. So it's in that place that my mind was also opened. And I saw some of my classmates had applied for these scholarships and they got in. And it's like, I was like, if I went to school with the same people, even me, I can try and get in. So Kenya High just opened my mind in ways that, and I'm thankful to even the teachers there as well, plus my primary school teacher.
Oh, excellent, excellent. I like shouting out high school. So we'll not go down to primary school, but thank you for mentioning St. Teresa. But I like shouting out all these academic institutions because I think they've built us in one way or another. Some people
Yeah.
have bad, obviously, but then, yeah, they've molded us in one way or another. And so I like shouting them out. So thank you, Kenya High, for molding these.
Yeah. Bomber. I'm a proud
Yeah.
American.
Talk to you, and the reason why I brought Kenya High is because every time I look back, people tell me, oh my goodness, you are inspirational, like you've mentioned, and people tell me, have you always wanted to be here? Like when you were in high school and you were in primary school, did you always dream that you'd be here? No.
Really?
No, I was young and I did not know anything about life. But there is also so much that if I was to go back or to talk to my after high school self, a lot of lessons that I've learned. So I'm curious to know, just one lesson. Talk to Agnes, who is fresh from Kenya High. What will you tell her, knowing what you know now, and you've definitely like you've been in big cities and countries, UK, US, and doing amazing things. What will you tell that Agnes?
Oh, I would tell that Agnes, Gladys, to not be afraid. And it's in the many things that we've talked about. Don't self-reject, Agnes. Don't be afraid. These opportunities were not created for a select few, even though sometimes that's how it may look like. Don't be afraid to go for them. Don't be afraid to see something and just try. That Agnes, I think, was wrestling a lot with self-rejecting and afraid that she needed to be this level to be able to get into some spaces. But I would tell her, imagine, don't be afraid. And then the other bit would be, don't be anxious. I guess it's connected, but there's a way anxiety can be very crippling that it makes you actually not do anything. And I feel like it's very relevant now because a lot of kids these days are wrestling with a lot of mental health issues, and there's a way, for example, if you're wrestling with anxiety, you'll try and find ways to remove that feeling, but don't let anxiety cripple you to not doing the things that in your heart you're supposed to be doing. So I think those are some of the things that I would try and tell that Agnes back then if I could. Yeah.
Definitely lessons, and I think I would actually borrow those lessons to tell the Gladys of that time as well. Yeah. So thank you for. Now we've talked about serious things: PhD, masters, work, etc. What else do you like doing? Hobbies outside work and school?
Wow, I feel like I'm very boring though. But honestly, I'm a bookworm, so I read a lot. And when you're in grad school, the things that you thought were interesting to read outside, now for me, I'm trying to find other things to read, like interesting things like biographies or autobiographies. So I do that. And then also being in West Virginia, I have a friend and we're trying to explore places outside. Like, it's very beautiful outside. And I'm trying to, like yesterday, we just sat and watched the sunset, enjoying things like that, just to get away from that. And whenever I can, man, a good theater. I like theater, plays, musicals, like things like that. Wherever they are, I'm gonna try and catch them. So that's Agnes. And I like to think I dance, but I don't. It's in my. I don't think
it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Hey, great, Agnes. So again, thank you for coming. So what I'll do, if you do not mind, I'll share your LinkedIn link here with my audience. And I want especially those students who would want to try Zawadi, or if they have more questions about Zawadi, they can connect with you and ask about your personal experience, etc. Or just chat about you, whatever you do. So just any last word before we close, but just to say again, thank you. I know you could be doing a lot of things in West Virginia, and you are a PhD student. Like, people are always busy or tired. You could be watching sunset. Oh, it's not sunset yet, but you could be doing other things. So thank you for creating time to be here and sharing your story so generously with us. Really appreciate. Any last word?
I think my last words are to you and also maybe to the people who watch us. Honestly, Gladys, like, just keep doing what you're doing, and it's inspirational. You just never know the stuff you're doing and the impact that it has. Because honestly, for me, listening to some of the interviews you've done, is confirming that, okay, keep doing this, and this is something that you might be struggling with, but you need to keep doing it. So thank you for like obeying, like whatever that urge was, and the need to do it, and the conversations that you're having, especially now where we are in Kenya, when we're talking about trying to encourage people, showing people what the value of an education, why that's still important, why we're doing what we're doing. So thank you for that, and keep pushing. Like, your story, I think, your story needs to get to as many openings that are there for people to hear. I think it's extremely inspirational, even for me. And I guess for the audience that we have, especially like if you're from Kenya or like an African country, I don't know, it's just that keep at it. I know there's so many things that are thrown at us, and you can genuinely feel like this is not possible. But I'm always like, I look at other people, even like I look at you and your story, and I'm like, man, she did it. Like, look at the niche of PhD she has, so what excuses do we have? And if it's coming from inside and you're self-rejecting, like, get rid of that. Don't, try. Let the no come from outside, but don't let the no come from you. So if there's anything else, apply for those scholarships. You've seen something, just do it. Go for it. Watch awa wakwambie no, but don't tell yourself no. So I think that's what I would have. And let's just keep getting better. Let's be better at what we do, better professionals, better students, good human beings. I think that's what I would say.
Amazing. I will not add anything to that. That was a powerful way to end. So thank you again. Goodbye.